tell you from experience as well. Every word he said about the actual recruiting is head on. I first started doing that every week until we grew too much to stand out there, but every week, without fail, after release time, I stood outside. No matter what, we made sure that the guys stood after every single program. You have to stand outside to just to speak to the parents and to become familiar with them, to build their trust, and so on. But I would like to give a few words about sort of focusing on the concept of the workload and the workload that you're trying to do and the structure you're trying to build. The Rebbe, I heard this story today. I'd like to share it on this real point here. The Rebbe met Shmuel Zizim. So he said it was a Shmuel question, but it makes sense. It was a Shmuel. He asked him, what was your hardest point, or your hardest inyan under your years in Galus, Kapshuta in Russia? And he said, Eva Kraft. And he said, we didn't have Siddur to daven, and I was not sure of a certain word, and it bothered me to no end. Hanesin la yo'ev kayach, or hanesin la oyev kayach. The Rebbe commented on that this is being said, this Indian, to understand that and to feel that pain, all the other physical pains that he had in his life. This is the biggest thing that bothered him, and he remembers years later that was the thing that bothered him most. Only can come with Haravanya and Chassidus. The Rebbe wants us to have Haravanya and Chassidus. Obviously, the Rebbe wants us to have Haravanya the same amount or more in the release time program in our on the ground work as well. From Tzara Agra is no question about it. The more you work, the more you'll succeed. I was once at a table with the famous Golubov, the billionaire from Ukraine. We were Brengi. I spent some time in Shluchus in Ukraine. And someone asked him, Adolf Balshevsky, says, how do you become rich? How do you get so much money? Billionaire. How do you become so rich? So he laughs and he says, you want to become rich, you have to work hard. If you want to become very rich, you got to do something else. There's times that you have to do something else. In Russia, you can imagine what that something else means. But there's times that you're in the position to do something else in a kosher way. Like they give the examples of doing something, a new technique to recruit, a new way, a new style, something that can work in one school or many schools. But other than that, from week to week, it's getting down there and working at it with the structure. To go through the structure quickly, I jotted notes just before I came here, remembering, and I looked at my old papers and my lists, how they grew. I still have them. It's this thick, 3.5 years, a little over 3 years that I went, starting with the first weeks. I have almost every paper. I was a little bit of a freak to see the growth. I used to send it into the Leil, and it's fascinating. I was looking back and I saw little stories of things that happened, and then I saw in Crown Heights just a few days ago. We used to call them the ducklings. There was this young lady with there was 3 girls that we had at release time. They walked like a little tatlach, one little, another one, and like another 4.5-year-old we took them. And they're great kids. And it's 8 years later or so, 7, 8 years later, and guess what? They live at Crown Heights. Incredible. I couldn't believe my eyes. There's many stories. There's so much to give over inspiration and what happened, and sometimes you don't see this. It's a special bracha to see the Vedas afterwards. But on the spot, and the day-to-day things, the week-to-week things, it's really, really about what you're going to put in. I broke it down to 3 things. It's actually something that I wrote as notes when I was speaking one time to all of our teachers, we used to go with the full band. We used to have 13 or 14 Bachman going at one point. And obviously there were the recruiters, there was the teachers, there was the setup crew, there was the cleanup crew, there was a whole... And the first thing is head on what Shimon gave you. Just to say it in a close way, and one or two button, the recruiting has to be always steady, every single week. And the success really comes from the steadiness. Follow-ups, like you said, the numbers. We never lost a card. We never wanted. We were afraid always to lose a card. We used to make copies of them. I used to bring them home and keep them in the folder so that the secretary didn't get through to them, or the secretary, they said no. I used to call them a week later, and if they didn't answer, I told them again and again and again. All my, from 7 to 8, if they come home, I would come home or come to my room, and I used to call. And until they, in a nice way, and we bonded. It was like a time over the phone, because a lot of these people I saw on the street, the numbers that I got. Believe me, I didn't remember all of them, but it had a big effect. So eventually that after a few months, or the next year, or 2 years later, those parents were sending their kids. So the first step is recruiting. There was one woman that kept saying no to us, and then she saw us one time. It started to pour. We didn't have umbrellas. It started to pour. We ran underneath the awning right by the entrance of the school, 175, PS 175, and she was standing there. She ran also for cover, and I said, maybe, we're stuck. I started asking the 7 and 8 parents. It was very embarrassing, but we did it in a fun way. And right then and there, someone signed up. I asked her, no. Anyways, about 2 or 3 months later, she saw us standing in the snow, and she started to laugh. I said, it's a good time to ask her. She took out a pen, said, if you guys can stand in the snow, I'm signing up. She had 2 kids. So the students are doing more. In recruiting, the recruiters have to know exactly what goes on in the program. Even if you don't come to the program one time to check it out, you have to know what happens, exactly where it is, the schedule, a little bit of what they're going to do. There's no reason to go more into recruiting. Shimon gave it over well. That's the first point in setting up. Even if you come to a school that has 1 child or half a child, you need to do recruiting. Step 1. Step 2 is that the child should be happy. I'm a teacher now. That's the thing. First step, especially nowadays. The children have to come away happy. They have to come away excited. You may not see it every day, you may not see it every week, but the children in general have to be happy. They go away, and while the program's happening as well, there has to be excitement. There has to be a smile on their face. And very often you'll see it naturally because you're jumping around. You come there and you're taking them, hi, how are you, Jack? Right? But you have to make sure that every child has a smile on their face when they come away. It does so much for recruiting because they start bringing their friends. It gives their parents a boost. It gives the school the confidence that the kids enjoy it. It's a good thing for them. They enjoy going to this thing. It must be a good thing for them. It's safe. So there's a famous but the story was the Rebbe. He called someone in and going to Eretz for 2 weeks. That he asked him to do something else there, and he asked him, "I want to do." From all the Chabad yeshivas at the time, there were tens and tens of Chabad yeshivas for the youngsters there, and he said, "In 2 weeks, I want to do exactly what's going on in the yeshivas." So he stammered, "I don't know how to do that. 2 weeks. Each school has 10, 15 classes, or 20 classes. How is it possible?" So the Rebbe turns to him and says, "Just go into the classroom of each school, go into each classroom, and just say a big good morning or a good day, and give a big smile to them. And just see how their reaction is. Are they going to smile or not?" And that's what he did. He covered all the schools that were on the list, and he gave a look to the Rebbe, which ones were smiling, which ones whatever. And you see the Rebbe is
the other thing for a child nowadays, and this was already in the 70s, was that the children have to be happy. Step number one. Obviously, that's part of the structure. If there's a structure, children crave, they love being in a structure. From little Pinselkindlach all the way till teenagers, they enjoy having a proper structure until they want to rebel. It works like a charm. If you give them a structure every moment, that this is what we do now, that's what we do next, and this is what you don't even have to say it after the first 2 or 3 weeks. They'll do it without you like robots, and they'll enjoy it because they're waiting for the next thing. As soon as they grow from those things, they learn the psukim already, you can add more. But it's all part of a step-by-step structure. From the moment that you pick them up, or really the moment that you leave Crown Heights, but mainly from when you pick them up until you give them back to their parents, every minute has to be accounted for. The bus here, the bus back, or it's the van, or if you're walking, planning out beforehand. So really, it's not about the impossible or a workload that is crazy. I'm into learning. I can't. I'll give my 4 hours a week. I'll give 5 hours. Pull a little bit. I'll go on your bike. Plan out Tuesday nights. We did this almost every Tuesday night. We went there, 1, 2, or 3 or 4 of us. We went into the office, packed our bags, made sure we had everything that we can possibly think of that we would need. We made sure it was in our bags. If you need a few extra cookies, it's not worth having a child that he's a little pig, he needs 4 cookies. Pack 4 cookies. Packing extra pack. Shazam's not going to worry about the extra cookies. He was worried about my days. He was worried about too many pizza parties. But we had 1 a year at the time. I don't know what goes on now with the pizza parties, but he was really strict with cookies and a little extra soda. Go ahead. Make sure that you have enough. Those things, if they're packed on Tuesday, it also gets into the spirit. 7 o'clock, or right after supper, you go to the office, 1 or 2 guys. Make sure that you're ready. Obviously, this structure that you'll give them throughout every minute has to be done with excitement, like I said. And for sure, they should accomplish something every week. If it's a new puzzle, if it's a new story, something that they feel they accomplished, they got. The excitement can come with raffles, it can come with whatever you want to do with it, but they have to accomplish, and there has to be that excitement, and there has to be a structure of every moment. Those are the first 2 points, recruiting and happy kids, happy children. The third and final point, which I feel is the next level in recruiting, it's the next level in growing, and I saw it each year. Parents' trust. If you have the recruiting, children that are happy, and you have parents' trust, there's no question about it. It's a siyata d'shmaya that you're going to grow in quality and for sure in quantity. No questions asked. The parents' trust comes from when you drop them off. There's a few times that parents get a trust in what you're doing. You drop them off. It's not for nothing that the Rebbe told Shlomo Kunyan when he asked, what type of younger man should I pick to become on shlichus? So the Rebbe told him 3 things. 2 of them were about release time. One was, does he check if he went on or goes on release time? And number 2 is, check if he stays afterwards to talk with the parents. I heard from him himself. Check, see if he talks afterwards, stays around and talk with the parents. I started doing that from the beginning on, and it worked very, very well. The parents started to realize I care for them, care for their kid. Or your kid was a little bit chilly, that's cool. It really, really, really goes into them, one by one. They're running to pick their kid up by, or it's like you said, the babushka, there was a grandmother, but it was someone you were talking to, you were bonding with their home. And when you bond with their home, there's a misconception that a lot of first-timers and people that didn't see the next level of growth in their school make a mistake on. And that is, release time is about those crackpots sometimes, or the crazy kids, the first 10 kids. They're not crazy, they're sometimes special. The school doesn't mind getting rid of them. The parents don't mind you doing whatever you need to do with them to just get them happy. And then some of the people that they want Yiddishkeit, they want some Judaism inside of their, kids' life. But the next level of what's called the middle-class kids, the American kids, the ones that were much harder to get, always came after the trust with the parents and also with the trust with the school, but mainly with the parents. A, by meeting them afterwards. B, the recruiters, just talking nicely with them. Even if you ask them 100 times, but talk nicely with them, they're going to eventually realize you're one of them and you just want to help them. They'll get the point that way. Even if you're standing in front of the school and they curse you out the first 3 times, they'll get the point, they'll go over to them. And obviously, happy children also give that security and safety to the parents. When I would drop them off, I would always make sure that there were a buffer or 2 that stayed right there. Didn't run to recruit, but they stayed with them and made sure that every child was accounted for. Oh, that's his father. No, that's your mother. It did so well. They realized we're being careful, not just off the street. Take the kids. We got to know them. Which one were, and it got hard after a while when we grew. Our first year we started off. I just want to go a few thoughts in here. We started off our first year with from 3 schools, 175, 206, and 220 in one area. We started off with 5 children. 5 of us came, 5 children. Literally, we each sat and taught a child. We sang together, we did it up together, and afterwards we taught each one separately. It said it was crazy. I went to the school that next few weeks and recruited. We got in touch with a lady, a psychologist in school. She started sending all the Shugayim. The place was like 5 or 6 more kids right away. So we had one guy deal with those type of kids. Took him downstairs, he would take them outside. So we dealt with them, kept them aside. And the thrust of the growth was due to those 3 facts. All 3 together. First and foremost, recruiting. Second, the kids being happy. And finally, the parents' trust. We started, like I said, with 5 children. At the end of the first year, our biggest week was around 30, which it's not so much. In those times it was a lot. It was very, very nice, especially due to the fact that there were 5th grade class that we spoke here. The teacher all of a sudden pulled out the 9 children from one class, stopped coming. Only one kid kept coming, a girl. All the other ones stopped coming. Couldn't figure it out. I asked the school, found out from parents, started calling parents. They said the teacher doesn't want. They have tests, they have this, they have that, they can't come. Anyways, a week or 2 later, I saw a whole group of those kids. That group coming out of the school. I said, it's not being 5. They're all wearing yarmulkes. This was 7 or 8 of them. They were walking together. Most of them were boys. There was 2 girls, and there was the rest of them. They were all wearing yarmulkes, and one kid was wearing tzitzis. I said, what happened there? He said, well, our teacher didn't let us. So we decided we're going to come to the school with our kippas. And they were wearing our kippas, the kid was wearing our tzitzis. He ripped it off. But he went to school for a whole week wearing the yarmulkes and wearing the tzitzis. One of them kept his yarmulke for the rest of the year. And then he went to yeshiva. So it's very, 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 very powerful. That connection that you make with them on one time, second time, and further. We started in a little small shul. It was 1 room. Right away, as soon as we were able to, we split the big children and the younger children. I know now this year they want to do it in a big rally. We started off by splitting it, and eventually we went to doing a rally. We moved into a bigger shul, we went to doing a rally. When it became about 40-something children, we said it's too much for a rally, and certain children weren't getting their attention, and that's when we split it up again. But either way, I'm sure it'll work. Okay. I'd like to just really wish you a tremendous tzlacha in your workload and the amount that you put in. That's as much as you will take out of it. The furtherance of more of the details you give over to those that would like a little bit afterwards. We've got time here.